Welcome to Frank and Honest, where we're sometimes frank and always honest. Our goal is to cultivate happiness through curious conversations. This voice you're hearing now is Allie.
This is Tiffany, or Tiff, but we are all about health, happiness, and having a good time. Welcome to Frank and Honest. Today we have Joanne Bailey.
Hello.
Joanne, I think some of my favorite things about you are how fun and authentic you are. We had an opportunity this last week to do a little adventure retreat in Teton County, and was really able to see some of that fun side of you and the authentic bits that we're going to definitely dive into here in a second. But before we do, if you could share with us just a few, when you think about yourself and your best qualities, of course, there's probably some crunchy ones in there too.
Don't we all have them?
Yeah, I have a couple. If you could just share with us just a few things about yourself and to get us started.
Yeah, things you like doing, what you do for fun, what you do for whatever.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get to decide what people get to know about you. So
most people know, but I have 2 kids. Jerry has 3, so we have 5 together, 11 grandkids. We have a new great grandbaby named Ruby. I love horses. I love nature. I love being curious. I love getting through the stuck. I'm good at my job for about 3 years, and then I need to up my game. I started my career at Idaho Central when I was about 16 as Share Bear. Had the costume. I was the original Share Bear and would stand on the street corner and wave people.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, I worked myself up into helping them develop their mortgage department. So that little Share Bear did me well. But that's what I said is I was there for 10 years, but every couple of years I gotta go. Yeah. What's next? What's on the list? But I'm finding now that I've kind of been there and done a lot of things, and I'm starting to not like change as much. So I'm starting to want to be content. And I don't know that that's good or bad. Our great friend Angie recommended a book called Strength to Strength. And it talked about the modern elder in there. And I was really burned out at work. And the modern elder, it talks about Chip Conley, how he had 23 boutique hotels. And the kids and he'd sold them, and the kids that did Airbnb came to him and said, "Hey, we need your wisdom." And so they coined him as the modern elder. And I've grown out a team over the last couple years being the modern elder and taking the back seat and letting my guys and girls have the spotlight. And it's been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So that transition.
So it's been fun saying, I don't need to be out there. And you know what? My buyers, I give all my buyers to somebody on my team, most of them, not all of them. But I find they have a better experience too, because I haven't been there, done that. I'm like, I am too quick and I go fast because I know the process, and they want to kind of slow down. And so my newer agents, they enjoy them. They're closer to their age. It's just worked out really well. I'd say if I could be anything when I grow, I like to be a wisdom seeker. If I would have been able to choose my path, I think I would have been a rodeo pickup girl, where helping all the people when they're out there on the horses. And I've actually followed one girl that does it now, and that wasn't a thing. I have learned that your life is what you create. I don't really like talking about yesterday. It's dumb, like, to me. I mean, the things you learn from it, great. Don't repeat them if they're bad.
Yeah, right. That's the goal. That's the goal.
But I love creating my future.
Yeah. I know that's kind of an interesting thing. Whenever we have conversations, it's typically either in the present or future casting, and it is, and we kind of go the same way of, I don't necessarily like to talk about the past because I don't want to live there, but then finding the lessons in there, right? And then being able to share those with others and hopefully, I don't know, help. Typically what I see is, like, I'll share a story about something where I made a mistake and did this, and that person that I shared the story with will make the mistake, but they'll rebound faster.
Yep.
Right? Because we all have to make our mistakes, and we all have to do our things.
And I think it's really good when you can be with other people that say, it's okay, I've done that too.
Yeah, right?
You're not going to die.
Yeah.
You might feel like it, but you're not going to.
Yeah.
Are you breathing still? Okay, you're good. Right. Be good.
Is everybody alive? Yes. Yeah, we have this thing called Lessons Learned from Last Week.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily dwell on the yucky stuff, but you can learn a lot. in that reflection time in that period. But if that's where you stay, that's just you can end up with just a bunch of anxiety, and
Yeah.
nobody likes that. But yes, Joanne, I love it so much. You shared so much about yourself in just little tidbits that gave us kind of some insight into who you are, from horses to real estate to team building to the nature and the fun
Yeah.
stuff. And we got to do some of that fun stuff last week at the retreat. Some of the highlights, looking back, I was just like, I was cold this morning, taking a shower, and I'm like, oh, it's freezing today. And I'm like, it came back to Joanne, and she's like, yeah, after we went on this really awesome, beautiful, epic hike, saw some moose, but it was cold.
It was so cold.
The best part is when we were leaving, Allie says, we have all day, no need to rush. I'm out there in the cold, and I'm like, we have all day, can we rush?
Should we just move faster so we stay warmer?
Right, I'm staying present. This is great, but listen, my toes are cold.
Yeah.
It's just that I thought might be waterproof or not.
Yes, we actually were just talking about that on the walk
Yeah.
up to the studio today, because it was like, oh man, it was chilly.
Yeah. So okay. So a little background for this. So we had this epic hike planned last week, and it was going to be super cool. Going to go up Table Mountain, and the thing about planning things in early fall is the weather doesn't care what your plans are.
Mhm.
Didn't get my memo. And so the topic of the day was even openness, and it was one of those, be open to everything being good. And if you have to stop, make it because you feel good about what you've done and you want to do this, X, Y, Z. And the whole time driving up, I'm like, okay, it's raining. Okay, it's freezing.
It's still raining.
It's still raining. And if it's raining down here, it's snowing up there. And I just kept going through my head. I'm like, okay, but it'll be good. And just trying with all my might for the rain to stop. Just because it was like, hey, this is like the big adventure day. Let's do it. I'm glad, it worked out. Everybody got back and we saw a moose and it was pretty. And we were the only ones on the trail. That's the joy of going out in terrible
Yes.
weather.
Yes, that
Um,
actually, I love that part of it. So it also shows a little bit of the crazy side of what we did, because when you go to one of the most epic hikes in Teton Valley, Idaho, on the backside of Teton National Park, where when we went there before, it was packed. I mean, there wasn't a moment you didn't see somebody else on the trail, but we had the entire mountain to ourselves. The only other people I think we heard was some Forest Service folks cutting down some trees and doing some
When
trail
we
maintenance
on our way back, yeah.
on our way
Yeah.
back. But that part of it was so epic, and there was a lot of things that I learned along the way about myself, and also I was so impressed with the team, including like all of us here, of keeping our spirits high. Because when you make a plan, flexibility is power. When we first started our businesses, at first it was kind of a joke where we said, well, flexibility is one of our best qualities, because you schedule, you plan, you do all these things, and all of a sudden stuff doesn't really reveal itself as you had planned. And our hike was kind of like that, but we were very fortunate to see some moose, a lot of critters out there, little birdies and things.
Bear scat.
Yeah.
Bear scat.
Never have seen bear scat like that.
Yes.
They like berries.
Well, they do like berries, and some of them don't digest very well.
How do we know? Oh God, it was super epic. But yeah, we're there. I'm curious to hear from you, Joanne, about the retreat, because it's an adventure treat, but we also had some personal to professional development in there as well. But some of the highlights, from paddleboarding to the hike, what were some of the biggest takeaways for you?
I haven't spent a lot of times in Driggs Victor area,
Mhm.
and it was very quiet. I'm sure it was because it was during the week, but it's not as overrun as some of the more touristy places. So that was really nice. We have a daughter that actually it works in Victor, and I never knew where. And when Allie took us on our community tour, I was like, oh my gosh, that's where my daughter works. So that was really neat. And she said, I was just there yesterday. I was there. I could have met her for lunch, but that's communication problems. So I think just being with really great women that want to improve no matter how improved they are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, we all you guys as leaders had growth. I had growth. That it's those aha moments, right?
Mhm.
And I think also helping others that haven't been where we've been, and helping them through the
Mhm.
stuck, whichever you want to call it.
Mhm.
I think that's very rewarding too. One of the girls was just full of anxiety and was convinced that she wasn't even going to get out of the truck
Mhm.
when we did the hike. And between all of us, she was able to make it much further than we expected.
Yeah.
And we had all in our own ways tried to manipulate her
It really is.
Coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
into staying. And it was so funny that what really worked was the sucker and the hug.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't need a big conversation. You just need a sucker and a hug.
And she all of a sudden was just like going up this mountain, and we were like, wow, she's still with us. And Angie says, yeah, I gave her a sucker and a hug. She's fine now. And it's so funny how
Yeah.
that can just
Yeah.
change your whole mood. And it's true. Whenever I do a hike like that, I love packing a white bread sandwich because you're not supposed to eat them. You know, the
Yeah.
gluten's bad, this is bad, all the things are bad. And it's the same thing when I do a lot of ranch work, and they'll say, oh, we didn't have anything catered today. We're just having white bread sandwiches. And I'm like, yes, there's something about it. And one of my favorite parts on the trip was getting to where we were to the waterfall. And I got to pull out this peanut butter and jelly sandwich that I made that morning.
Uh-huh.
And I got to put as much peanut butter and jelly on it that I wanted. And no one's going to judge. And I'm going to work for it. And no one's going to care. And I have a picture. I said, Angela, you get a picture with me, my sandwich.
Yep.
Because to me, that's the highlight, is being able to pack your lunch and knowing you earned it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so fun.
It's the little things like that. You know, you go out in nature, you do something cool, and then, or even, you're doing ranch work and you're out there and you've worked hard and you're like, this is mine.
Yeah, no one's going to take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is mine.
It's got mayo on it, and I'm going to eat every ounce of it.
Yeah. Oh,
There is something about when you go an adventure or just, I don't know, you're just out, you're doing stuff, you're moving and shaking, whatever it is. And then lunchtime hits and you're like, man, it's food and drink just hits a little bit different when you've been exerting yourself physically. We talk about that a lot because the physiology and what we do, like adventure, we're not just like we're going out and we're having a good time, but it's also very intentional. It's very intentional. Our mindset when we go into it, we're going into, get a good workout and all these things. But every time we go adventure, Ali touched on this concept, the floor and the ceiling, and I would love for you to share a little bit about that because it's such a good, fun mindset going into an adventure from where you're at, where you're going to go, because it's easy to get caught up with comparisons, but the floor and the ceiling is a really nice way to set the stage for an adventure.
well, yeah, because we had people with all different backgrounds, all different physical capabilities, perceived and,
And
an actual.
perceived and action is, a very good way to put it.
And it really is the floor and the ceiling. What's your minimum? What's the floor of what you want to do? And what's the ceiling? And what's your ideal? So, getting out of the trucks, it was, I'm going to go a half mile. That was, and it was a group thing. So that's a collective group floor, right? The group floor was a half mile. The group ceiling was all the way to the top. Mother Nature had something else to say about that, so that ceiling got lower. As we got up higher, we got into the clouds more, so that ceiling started going down a little bit more. And then what we actually did was pretty good. Is that what really got done? What did you prepare to get done? What could get done given the gear you wore? What did you accomplish that day? But it really is the floor. What's your minimum? Ceiling, what's your maximum? And then what's your ideal is somewhere in the middle. And I find that to be a fun way to do life, really, and adventures, whether it's working out or going on a big adventure, anything like that. That's the way I kind of frame my mind around it. And I shared that with the group kind of to say, hey, like we're all at different places. Where are you at? And then let's see where we get together. And it was kind of fun to see where that ended up.
Well, and I think an important element of that is showing up for yourself.
Yeah,
Totally.
I mean, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, and I was running late this morning. And I like to do some 30 minutes of spin or yoga or whatever it is. And I really didn't have time. And I'm like, okay, but 5 minutes. Don't let yourself down. And I think that's what people get so focused on, what other people are thinking, and no one else cares. But when you start showing up for yourself, it makes all the difference in the world. And you're like, wow, I did that. And it helps your confidence.
Yeah. And I think, what is it? I think Alan Watts, he's an old time philosopher. But he's like, people are worried about what other people are thinking. And the illusion is that it's actually happening, or that the thinking is going to be about you. And more so when you tune into yourself and you're just like, what will make me feel better today? Will 5 minutes make me feel like I did at least something? Is that what I got in me today? Or is that what time allows? Or what is it? And it's important to take time for yourself at least. Whatever your floor is. I was gonna make a blanket statement, but really it's whatever you can do, whatever
up
it
for
is that you
yourself.
can do. Show up for
Yeah.
yourself that
Yeah.
day.
Totally.
One of my favorite parts about the retreat and really just talking to you is, well, you've lived a life and you're a learner. So what that does, and so from the aspect of you don't need to necessarily dwell in the past and put you back in that place, but some of the lessons you've learned because of the experiences you've had. And hopefully you'll say yes to this. If not, John's got to edit it. But there was one story about initiative that you told, and it's one of my favorite stories because it totally reframed my brain and how I think about things. So, would you?
I will.
Yes.
You might have to cut what I say. I will give it my best attempt. I am very go with the flow, and I'm not a competitive person, and I know that. It's okay. It's not like I'm going to try to be competitive.
Yeah.
It's just not my thing. And I'm a dabbler, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like I'll never be a drug addict or an alcoholic because I'm good with one or two, or maybe
Just not committed enough.
I'm not committed enough. And my husband, on the other hand, is very competitive. In fact, on my birthday, we went bowling and we had a few drinks and we were going out of line, and he got so mad he took his bowling shoes off and said, "I'm not bowling anymore." So he is very competitive. But he came home it was probably been about 8 years ago, and he lined up all his trophies. He's a race car driver, and he'd had one for local track, state track, this track, that track. Like, I can't remember, but he had 3 champions, and he had all these jackets and these trophies, and he's like taking pictures of them. And then there's me, and I'm like, "Yeah, and all I've done is sit on a track with a bunch of people that I don't want to hang out with, and I haven't done anything." And, I'm giving him that spiel, like, "You're living your best life, and here I am." And he looked at me and he said, "Don't blame me for the initiative you haven't taken." And I was like, dang, okay, watch this. I'm going to start taking initiative.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I was doing it to show him, but it turns out, like, if I didn't go to every one of his races, it was okay. And he didn't, yes, he wants me there, but he doesn't expect what I expected out of me. And so I started living my life, and I became more independent. And then it was hard for me not to be around all the time and to do weekend retreats or overnights or whatever, but he got used to it too. And he saw the more joy I had, the more joy he had. And now I say we're really interdependent. And he's kind of known for his skill in racing and knowing what's wrong with vehicles. And he's trying to help this 13-year-old. He's transitioning from carts to cars, and they bought him a car, and they asked Jerry, "Could you run this for a couple weeks and get all the kinks out of it?" And this is happening right now. And so he went to the racetrack and was running it last week and this week, and I didn't even go. And there's a little bit of me that felt guilty about it. And I did go to 1, but he's been to 3. And there's part of me that's like, you know what? He's in his place, in his element. And all the guys are there, and they give him enough support. He doesn't need my help. He doesn't. Yes, it's fun to watch him win, but when you've watched somebody win so many times, it's like, here he goes again, and he's amazing. And so I always say that was the best lesson I ever learned from Jerry, from my own husband. I've paid for a lot of counseling, a lot of coaching, a lot of mentors. I've had a lot of jobs. And the one thing that I can say, it was my own husband that taught me the greatest lesson that I ever had.
Yeah. I really like that one because you'll talk to people and they'll say, well, yeah, we just did this. And you can tell a lot of times from the way the conversation goes that it's a one-sided weekend, right? Somebody is going solely to support that other person, which I think is great, right? But it's great as long as you're driving your own ship, right? Is the way I think about it. It's great if I go, if Tiff was super into racing and I wasn't, kind of thing, I would say racing bikes, not cars, something like that. But to go and support her would be one thing, but because I chose it, where there's a lot of people who I think just follow around.
Well, I
And-
think
and
we're
which
very
is-
domesticated.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And that's not what we're here to be.
No.
And
no.
we
all-
just start following what we think we're supposed to do.
Mhm.
But we're put on this earth to live
Mhm.
and nourish ourselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, everyone knows you have to take care of yourself before you take care of others. But how good are we at that? We always feel like we're letting others down.
Mhm.
But I mean, I'm not saying it was perfect, but once we dialed that in and I started to do what I loved and enjoyed, then I'm a happier person. And I see that so much with friends that have either kids or spouses and they're not enjoying it. Or I see it right now, I'm seeing it a lot with empty nesters. Like they've been the cheer moms.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they're coming to me and say, you have such a great life. Like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And like, I didn't wrap my identity up into my children. I'm
Mhm.
like, I love my children,
yeah.
but that's not me.
Yeah.
They've got to live their own lives too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which I think is an important thing. You know, we all only get one shot at this, pending your beliefs and all that. But let's just pretend for right now that we only have one shot at this life. We all only get one.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of live it the best you can, even if that's a little bit different than your kids or your spouse or your family or your friends want to do. If you're really into something, find a way to make it happen.
Right.
Because I know that's what happened with us. You know, I really enjoy riding bikes, and at some point I was like, Tiff, I've looked at my bike for enough years. When I moved back to Idaho, you know, in California you can ride all the time. Idaho you can't. And I would slowly watch summers go away, and it took 2 summers before I'm like, listen, I gotta ride my bike. This is too much time is going by, and I just see it over there, and it looks so pretty, but really it rides so nice too. And it ended up being something, at first she jumped on and it was,
I learned to love it.
she learned to love it. And
learned to
and now
love
it's one of the things that we love to do together, but there's definite, then she's like, Allie, so I really want to do yoga. And that's not necessarily my super jam, but it's, she wants to do it. And then it becomes, do I want to do it with her, or is that something she's doing on her own? And either answer is fine, it turns out.
Mhm.
Um,
But supporting each other was
yeah.
important with that.
Right.
The
Well,
support,
and I have
yeah.
to say, I'm kind of impressed with your yoga skills.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm
Allie,
saying.
Allie is pretty good at yoga.
Yeah.
Hamstrings, strength,
Yeah.
very flexible.
And Tiff's a great instructor. That was really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I
that
could have
was a
done it
good-
morning and night, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I love a morning session and the evening session. You just go a little bit somewhere a little different.
Yeah.
A little different, but it's so true because I can't remember, the exact time period, but I know what you're talking about when cycling. So now Allie and I, we have like a fitness room in our home where, it's our peace palace where our Zen den, whatever you want to call it, the pain cave, where Allie's more mornings than not, she's on her bike trainer. And I think that's great. I'll get on my bike, like on the trainer once a week, twice a week. In the winter, that number goes up. But in the morning, I really just want to get my yoga on.
Mhm.
I want to get my yoga on. I want to read a little bit in the morning and get after it. By the afternoon, I'm feeling really good. But it's kind of funny though, because that is cycling indoors, spinning in circles. I've had to especially learn to love that. Cycling outdoors, I'll get down with that all day long. But it's interesting because Allie and I went from in our relationship, we used to work at different places, would rarely see each other. And that has its own type of conflict. When you don't see your partner, you don't get to spend quality time together. And then we went from that to spending all of our time together. And that was also that if I could pick one or the other, I'd definitely pick the spending all our time together. But when it comes to hobbies, there's a distinction there when you still need to fill your own cup.
Right.
And for Allie, like she already said, was cycling. But we got so used to just doing everything together that at first that split was a little bit challenging in its own way, which sounds silly, but it's in taking that time to really do whatever it is for yourself. I really like the concept of your morning routine.
Mhm.
I know we talked a little bit about this at the retreat. Like, what is it that gets you moving? For me, this is, some reading, some yoga, maybe some intense cardio. For you, Joanne,
Mine's 2 hours on an ideal.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's my
That's your
sleep.
ideal?
Yeah, that's ideal. It's 2 hours in the morning. I love to read, do affirmations, my gratitudes, and then work out.
Mhm.
And
Did you always have a morning routine, or was that something that you learned
no,
to develop?
that's something just in the last probably 5 years
Mm-hmm.
that I
Have-
learned.
What do you think has been some of the significant changes since you started doing that?
I think one is showing up for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the more I do for myself, the more I feel better about myself and not letting myself down. I'm in better shape now than I was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like Megan will be flipping through pictures and she's like, "How do you never age?" I'm like, "Thank you." But
Nailed it.
I think that's helped a lot. I think it was getting a coach, a business coach, and they just really hounded that into us about how important that morning routine was. And sometimes I miss it. Like this morning, I did 5 I try to do 30 30 30, right?
Mhm.
Today I was like 5 5 5, like get the reading done, get this done, hurry.
Yeah.
But at least I did it. And because I'm the one that'll say I'll do it when I get home and I won't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love to.
Same.
Jerry and I walk. We live at the base of Black Rock Canyon, and I was walking it almost at night, and then when the 3 of us were on a hike with Rachel,
Mhm.
and we found a handgun,
Mhm.
and that kind of freaked me out. I didn't want to go by myself anymore,
Mhm.
and so Jerry got me a fanny pack for my handgun, and I'm like, no.
That wasn't the answer.
And so he said, well, I said, I'll just not go there, and I'll go to somewhere that's more private, but it takes longer. And so he got into walking with me. He's seen me walking, and so he started walking with me. And he'd always say, you just have to be faster than Lily. Like Lily, they'll take Lily down, our dog. And I'm like, oh, geez. But he's just always laughing and about it. But now he's up there hiking with me every day. And there's days that I come home and I don't want to. I'm really tired. And he'll tell Lily, he's like, did you hear that? Mom doesn't want to go for a walk. And then game on. So that's really helped us. And that's why I know that, like, I might walk the canyon at night when I get home, but I'm never going to do a workout routine. I have to do it in the morning or it just doesn't get done.
It's so important to have that morning routine. I listened to a podcast recently that said, make your morning routine portable. Because whenever you're
Yeah,
traveling or whatever,
true.
and because it's so easy to get out of a routine, whether it's your nutrition, your
Mhm.
physical activity, your gratitudes, your reading, making it portable. And I really, really like that. And it's so easy, no matter where you are, to have a book, write down some gratitudes, go on a walk, do want something for yourself. If it's not on your, cycling during in really intense cycling training, there are options to get out and do something physical, but it's allocating the time.
Mhm.
We totally reinvented ourselves several years ago when we started this entrepreneur lifestyle. At first, it was just like, holy snap, there's so much that you have to do. Business, clients, the phone's off the hook all the time. We're working. And we did that really well.
Mhm.
But we look back and it was pretty humbling to notice some of the impacts it made on our relationship in a negative way. The time that we were together a lot, but we weren't. It's like we spend a lot of time together, but we don't the quality time element. Like over the weekend, I'm just like, oh, I miss you. It's like we haven't got to hang out, and she's like, really?
Really? So the last 5 days was nothing, huh?
I worked with Jerry for a long time. I know.
But there's something to it in that it's the intention, I think, behind it.
Yeah.
And we get a really good chuckle out of it. It makes me laugh, but having some of that intentional time is really important. And we have a fun saying that couples that play together stay together, because there are so many couples that will go, like, you'll support, in the past would support Jerry in his racing, and you were the support system, but you weren't really, it wasn't filling your cup. And we find that with a lot of our friends too. That's what they do, or they'll go on these independent adventures and they work, but then they never have quality time or
Yeah.
to do stuff together. So that balance is really important, but finding the thing that it is that lifts your spirits, that gets you going, because you have a number of those hobbies. One of them is horses.
Oh, yes.
Horses, and I've learned a lot from you in the past year. We went to
So Sally.
Yeah.
we went to Skojorden
Guys,
last year.
Guys, did you guys know that a pony is not a baby horse? Did you?
And I feel like we have kind of trained
John,
you,
did
like,
you know a pony's not a baby horse? See? Me neither, John. I'm glad we can be vulnerable together. I didn't. I thought a pony was a baby horse, and it's not. It's just a full-grown horse that's smaller.
Yeah.
But they can be 27. Like Oreo at the Skjoring.
Oh
I'm
my
just
God.
saying.
Well, that's what's been fun is it's been fun to hang out with you guys and do Tiff and Allie things. And it's been fun that you've been open to hang out with me
Yeah.
and do Joanne things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think we'll get you out to the ranch so that you can start
Yes,
vaccinating
we
cows. And
will.
it's so
Yeah.
it's like just stepping back into time.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. Like
Yeah,
there's always
cows are huge.
people are like, what do you love about ranch work? I'm like, you have to pay attention. You cannot multitask.
Yeah.
Like you're riding a horse that has its own brains, its own thought process. You've got to be paying attention. You never know when something's going to spook it.
Mhm.
Hopefully you have one that's grounded enough. But I'm my best horse is 27, and so I'm training a new one. And he's can be flighty at times. He's only as confident as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got that going on. You've got bulls out there. You're trying to vaccinate little babies, but at the end of it, you've got a great big family. I'm
Mhm.
4 or 5 generations out there doing things together, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it's so beautiful. It's watching mamas have babies,
Uh-huh.
having to take babies from their mommies because they're not getting milk, and the moms gives you the evil eye until the day she gets sold off or whatever it is.
Yeah.
She doesn't forget. I mean, it really brings you back to the sense of our purpose and how life's and the dynamics of a herd. And these guys hear me reference it all the time when I'm having struggles. I'm like, well, if it was in the herd, they'd have kicked him out by now.
Yeah. You'd be out.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
if they're not joining up with you, let them go.
Yeah.
Let them go. They'll come back if they're curious. Like they'll come back, but like you can't hold them down. Like you can't make them like you. It's fine. They've got their own thing that they're doing.
Yeah. I channeled my inner Joanne yesterday when we were running and we came across cows. And I was like, Joanne says they're not so smart.
She said this is that.
And I'm like, so if they're not so smart and they're all on the trail, I'm going to go up there and around them. And they're not so smart.
No.
I went up to go around and they came right up towards me. I'm like, you guys are not understanding what I'm trying to do. And then we come back. I'm like, wait, but there's a baby bull. I'm like, he's a baby bull. So
Baby bull.
he's either brave or he's stupid. And I'm like, I don't know which one it's going to be. Oh, it was so funny. But I was like, Joanne says they're not so smart. And I could just go and tell them what to do.
Mhm.
And so I did.
Yep.
We got through both times,
Yeah.
both directions. We
And I'm
got
pretty
through.
sure we weren't supposed to be on that road in retrospect, but it was fine.
It was
It was fine.
That worked out.
Yep.
Yeah, they aren't so smart.
Yeah, the ranch sign said they only shoot after dark, and it was
And it was
day,
daylight, so-
That's
I-
awesome.
I love
Like,
Idaho.
What would Joanne do in
Yeah.
this case?
Yeah, well, they should have to
And
dark.
Joanne's would really appreciate it if you're up in the trail cake area if you shut the gate behind you.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Oh,
Because
always
that's what
shut
I
the
was
gates.
doing on Saturday is some biker or motorcycle
Oh.
left the gate open. We had 20
Mhm.
pairs in a different section. So I have to go get them and bring them back down.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
So shutting the gate matters.
It's totally okay to be on
Yeah.
the property. It's just shut the gate behind you and always, and it's a good life lesson from the time I was
Totally.
little, right?
Yeah.
You open a gate, you shut it because your intention is you're going to come out that gate, so you don't shut it, but then you find a different gate,
Yeah.
and go through that
And they're
gate,
like,
and then
oh shoot.
crud. And
Yep.
so that's even at my own house. I'm like, just shut the gate right now because
Mhm.
you never know where you're going to crawl through the fence.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Or what's
Have
going
to
to pop
do
up?
some
Yeah.
rounding up.
Shut the gates, friends.
Shut the gates. There's this really nice analogy at the retreat about cows and buffalo. Do you guys remember that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the storm.
Yeah.
I really love this one because so cows, so say there's a storm rolling in, the
Mhm.
cow will run away from the storm.
Mhm.
Just prolonging how much you're going to be in
the storm.
In the storm, where a buffalo or a bison is going to go into the storm, and is going to minimize the impact
Mhm.
of having to experience all that rain or whatever it is. But humans, by nature, we're more like cows, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But
Like to
unless
sit there in this.
and it's just like, oh well, I'm going to run away from it. But if we could be more like bison,
Mhm. Do you think there's any moments in your life where you chose to end the storm faster?
I think I'm definitely a bison now.
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think one of those? Do you have one that?
I probably have a lot of them. I can't think of anything right off the bat, but when I see something that's difficult at work,
Mhm.
just pull the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
Relationships, just pull the Band-Aid off.
Mhm.
Get going because it's gonna hurt just taking it
Yeah.
and run.
And one of the ones with yours where, and again, John, you may have to edit this, but if not, you're in for some good stuff. No, one of your stories where it reminded me of like, yeah, you just decided was your bout with cancer,
Yes.
right? And you said that you did the chemo thing, and then at some point,
Yeah. So I don't identify as a
No.
cancer patient.
Yes.
no,
Yes,
no. Number one,
exactly.
you don't
Exactly.
identify as a cancer survivor. Like
Right.
you just are now. You're just
You're
Joanne, the
healed.
human that
Yes.
in the past had an
Like
experience with
you
it.
will not find a pink ribbon on me anywhere.
No.
Like no way. Because I am a survivor and I am a warrior.
Mhm.
And I did have terminal cancer. I've had 18 rounds of chemo. We had to go under anesthetic 6 times that year, 6 weeks of radiation. And even with all that, I only had a 15% chance of making it for 5 years.
Hmm.
And that stuff made me really sick.
Mhm.
In fact, these guys know I struggle with shingles. I have them right now. Anytime my nerves get rattled, there they come. And I didn't have those until my very first round of chemo. And I just decided I did not want to identify. I don't like anything about it. I
Mhm.
still have a struggle walking into a hospital. I can smell it.
Mm.
The medicine was red. They called it the red devil. Do not ever get me fruit punch. Like outside of that, it didn't exist. And I don't know if it's because I'm strong-willed and I just like in my mind they misdiagnosed me.
Yeah. Like they just messed up.
Like how
Yeah.
do like why do I need to believe them?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
who are they?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to tell me how long I'm going to live.
Yeah.
That's dumb. But it was a great analogy story with that is I was still on oral chemo. I was supposed to take it for 5 more years, and 2 years in, like my hands are just tied up in knots and my hips hurt so bad. And I just finally said, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm just not doing this. And I went to my dad, and my dad is very faithful. And my dad somehow got wind. I didn't go to him, but somehow he brought it to me like, hey, I heard you're not taking your medication. And I said, no, I'm not. And he said, well, that's not good. And I said, yeah, Dad, you've taught me since I was born that when it was my time, it was my time. And I said, and I'm just not going to live like that anymore. I said, if I stay on that medication, I'm going to be in a wheelchair. And he said, well, I don't think that's what God meant. And I said, yeah, I think that would be really hard as a parent,
Yeah.
wanting your child to do everything they could.
And not having the answers, but these doctors have gone to school
Yeah.
for this.
And
Yeah.
and I just, I said, I'm just not doing that anymore. And so I don't know that he still liked it, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I will be 10 years in November.
Yeah.
And so it's been a great, but part of that journey, right, is like my dad on his 80th birthday, I said, hey, do you want to go ride the Incan Parade with me on our horses? And he said, I'm 80 years old. And I'm like, and I'm only supposed to live 5 years. So you can use it to your
Yeah.
advantage.
Yeah.
And my dad went and rode that. I always wanted to ride my horse in the parade, always. And my dad went with me, and we did that parade. And he was I bet that was one of his best days of his life.
Yeah.
He was just so ecstatic. And we get done, and he said, I can't even wait to do that until next year. And I said, we're not doing it again.
Yeah, that was one time.
Like, you didn't break a hip,
Yeah.
and we're good. We're
Yeah.
not doing that again.
We checked that box.
But it's
sir.
fun, too, to how you go through life, and all of a sudden you're telling your parents what they told you when you were young.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was very Western to hold your reins up like high hole silver.
Mm-hmm.
And with horses now, the way they're trained, you give them their head.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hold their reins like that, you're in their face and they start walking backwards.
Yeah.
And we're lined up for the parade, and my dad has one of my very good trained horses, and it's like going backwards on him. And my dad just was kind of like, what are we doing here? And I finally looked at my dad and I was like, hey. And he's like, what? And I said, if you don't give that horse his reins, I'm going to tie them in a knot. And he's like, oh, geez.
You're gonna take
He
him.
just needs his head, Dad.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it was really fun to be able to, like, he's the one that taught me to ride.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to be able to come back to him and say, hey, you're 80 now. You got to listen to me.
Yeah.
I'm the boss now.
Yeah. That's funny. I have one horse story, and it involves the same thing. I got on a horse, and it got stuck in reverse.
Because
And,
back.
Yep. In a humbling moment, I was probably 20 something. But this 8-year-old girl looks up, and she's like, "You just gotta let go, and it'll stop." She wasn't wrong.
Let go.
I was stuck in reverse, and I just sort of let go, and the horse just stopped moving. And I was like, I can learn lessons from 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
because I had no business being, I don't know what they were thinking.
Well, I
I was
had a
20-something.
little
We're
bit
having
of
a good
fear
time.
of a water, and I was at
Yeah.
lava, and I came off my tube, and I am flopping around like a dead fish. Like, I know I'm going to die. And my nephew says, stand up.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Oh, here we are. Seriously.
It's so funny how you can just psych yourself
Yep.
out.
Oh, that's funny. No, I admire the way that you go through life, how you're doing this life thing. I think it's fun to talk to you about it. It's fun to hear your stories. Because that's
and
what we
with the whole
learn.
cancer thing,
Yeah.
even though I never had it,
Yeah.
it has really taught me to be courageous,
Mhm.
right? Like, well, I could die tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because if it does come back and statistics are, it goes to your bones or your brain,
Yeah.
like I'm done.
Yeah.
And so even though I deny it every day, there is that like, what if you never have this opportunity again?
Yeah.
Which goes back to the story I always repeat about Allie on one of the first podcasts I heard her say, and she was had asked some people what they did differently, and they said they started taking opportunities.
Mhm.
And that's a really easy way to say it is like I just take opportunities. Like there's only one, it's only your first time once.
Yeah.
And if you have the right support system, they're not going to let you fail.
Mm-mm.
They want you to win.
Yeah.
Just like the sucker and a hug this
Mhm.
weekend. Like we all wanted her to win. That girl was, which she's darling, but she would have stayed in the truck if she would have had her choice.
I believe that.
And then she would have only went a half a mile if
Mhm.
she had her choice. But she was surrounded by people that wanted her to win. And how far did she go? 4.5 miles?
We went
A total
just
of
over
5. Just over 5 miles.
total, which is wild to think, where you
A half
think-
mile was the
yeah.
goal, so that means it would have been a mile round trip, and you did 5 times that.
Right.
Just because you
you're
had
surrounded-
support.
And that's what I tell my kids. My kids, it seems like in this generation, they have a hard time with making good, deep connections.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because everything is so accessible by phone. And I tell my kids, like, just show up. Like, just show up. How do you do that by yourself? Well, guess what? If I wouldn't have showed up to a horse clinic by myself 15 years ago, I wouldn't have the mentors that I have today that are still my best friends, that are running the ranch, that are one of my best friend is Native. And I learned so much from their culture. I learned so much from her. She's such a strong woman. There's days like you guys might think I know how to ride my horse, but I think some days she brings me for entertainment. But
she'd take me out.
makes me
Yeah, I was
do
gonna say.
things that are hard.
Yeah.
Like I have a fear of going camping overnight with my horse, and they do it all the time.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, you're just gonna have to get past it. And they go on a 10-day. And just last weekend, they're like, let's just do a weekend trip. Well, I had this retreat, so I didn't get to go. But they are like, okay, Joanne, we can see that it's not normal for you to really be anxious about stuff. So we're just going to do it overnight.
Mhm.
And they even did me a favor and took my horse. So he knows how.
Oh,
He
nice.
knows
Oh,
now I just have to show up.
so now you just have to get on his
Yeah,
back.
I just have to show up and go do it. But what starts getting in my head is, oh my gosh, I got to drive 6 hours with my truck and my horse trailer, and you start counting all the tires, and
Uh-huh.
Jerry's not going to be there. And oh my, I'll just stay home.
Yeah.
And because they have such a love for me, they want to see me win. And so they're all rallying and like, well, let's just take our horse this year. We'll take her next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So that was the same thing with our friend that did the hike with us. We all just wanted her to win. And that's what I tell my kids, just show up by yourself. It's fine. I would say I hike as like, I'm a Subaru owner. These guys are Hummers. Like it's a different caliber, right? But you show up on a trail and you start hiking, and all of a sudden there's other single people
Yeah.
hiking, and they start talking to you. And it's the same thing we just talked about, doing trips by yourself.
Yep.
Mhm.
Like I love traveling by myself. And my kids again are like, I can't even believe you're just gonna get on a plane and go to New York by yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I sell real estate. Like
Yeah.
I can meet somebody.
Yeah.
I am gonna meet somebody. And I have the best times and meet the neatest people that I would have never met if I was with someone else.
Mhm.
Because when you're with someone else, it's like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And then, but when you're by yourself, you're forced to be like, okay, what do I really want to do? And you start doing those things and you meet the greatest people.
Yeah.
Like I went to Teotihuacan by myself this year. I traveled, well, it was actually last November for Day of the Dead. And it was an hour and a half commute from Mexico City to this little village. And I learned to walk on fire.
Mm.
I learned to make altars like for ancestors. We just had a dog pass away, and I made him the most beautiful altar as he transitioned. And I love learning that
Yeah.
culture. If you think Jerry Bailey's ever going to go to Mexico,
I don't think so.
to the women's well,
Yeah.
and I learned about Lady Guadalupe, and you just learn things that you would never know
Yeah.
if you just stuck around in
Yeah.
your own
Yep.
environment.
Yep.
No, I'm all about going and experiencing as many things as you possibly can. And then you can at least say, hey, that was cool. I'll do that again. Or if I did it again, I'd do it a little different. Or I'm good.
I think
I'm
it's
good with
about
once.
finding out what you don't want to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Like so many times there's shiny objects and you're like, man, I want to do that. And you
Yeah.
do it. And I find that with people. And I'm not trying to be rude,
No.
but there's so many people that on the surface, like you want some of their traits or you want their qualities or you do this. And then you hire them as a coach and you're like, you're terrible.
Yeah.
Just
You're
doesn't
you're
line up.
absolutely
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
No
It-
way.
Totally true. And you're like, yeah, that
I
was
feel
really
like you
good
just
idea.
have a bigger ego than I do.
Yeah.
You sell yourself and I don't have that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You're like, those are really good ideas, but here we are. I mean, that's one of my life things is I want to have a positive interaction with everybody that I come across. And it's my decision whether or not I come across them again.
Well, maybe
Right?
shallow
Or-
is a better word than
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is. You can have a positive interaction and then be like, hey, well, I'm good on that.
Yeah.
Like that was a really
Well,
good.
it's like
That's how I feel.
concerts. How many times have you went to a concert because you just couldn't even wait to go,
Uh-huh.
and the performance is terrible?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like and then you'll go to other people that you wouldn't think is so great,
Mhm.
and they're so amazing that you follow them for life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's how I feel about going on vacations to beaches. Like I really want to be one of those people that can sit and like get a tan or like I'm just gonna sit out and
You
read a
say,
book
Like
and
sit and relax.
like I
on
really
the
want to
beach.
sit and relax. I really want to sit and relax on a beach so badly. And then like we've done it a few times and I have about an hour and a half in me of like this is me relaxing on a beach an hour and a half and then I'm like, all right, listen, so there's like a grain of sand there and I'm gonna go find thousands more. I think there's one over here that I haven't seen yet.
Allie and Jerry should have been siblings.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
these
Because I
two-
definitely would have took bowling seriously on your birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Could you imagine?
We go to Mexico and Jerry's having the same problem.
Uh-huh.
And he sees somebody with a fishing pole. Pretty soon we're at the store. Now we have to take home extra luggage. Because he's like, I'm not just sitting here.
Yeah.
I love it. And he's like, I've never seen you so happy. Like your eyes have a certain sparkle here. I love that for you, but I cannot say it.
I can't sit here and support you any longer.
Like our friend Angie, she's so good at relaxing by the ocean.
She
She's
gets
so good, and
so
I'm like,
much
I'm gonna be like Angie. I'm gonna relax by the ocean. And I'm like, I'm gonna be like Rob. He's over here fishing. I'm gonna go be like that person. He's over here. Yeah.
Well, Rob's who got Jerry hooked on the fishing
See?
thing. And so Angie and I love it. You two just go do your thing.
Yeah.
We're going to sit here and relax and not
Yeah.
do anything.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's something about it though, like finding the people that support you in the journey and go on the adventures, and then find the things that work for you. Because even when you go with your spouse,
Mhm.
you're gonna find something that you may or may not want to do.
Yeah.
And you still got to pick and choose the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
And get after it. Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that we were able to go on the retreat together
Yeah.
and experience some of those.
Yes, that was
things.
great. Thank you.
So I
Yeah.
guess our final question this is our testing. We're testing out this final question.
Final question.
Is what's your next big adventure?
Mm.
I would like to go to Peru next year with the
Ooh.
same group I went to Teotihuacan with,
Nice.
which I go with Heather Ash, and she studied under Don Miguel Ruiz
Uh-huh.
for agreements.
Uh-huh.
You know, like we talk about authenticity,
Hmm.
that woman she just fills my soul.
Yeah.
She's just amazing. She's a lover of all, no judgment. I mean, she's just so amazing. And so I'd like to, I am really close to saying I am going to Peru next year. But there's a lot of things I want
There's
to
a
do.
lot,
And
yeah.
when you start looking at the time you need, it's like, it's not so much a money, it's a time.
Yeah.
Like you can't do this for
It's a
10
time's
days
the
or
ultimate
this and this
currency.
and this.
Mhm.
And but I'd really like, that's my next thing is going to Peru.
Well, I
With
can't
them.
wait till hear about Peru.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
there's llamas there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, llamas. Got to meet the critters. You always got to meet the critters.
Yeah.
Yes. Our next big adventure is scuba diving
Mhm.
next month.
Yep.
In Bonaire.
Oh,
Yep.
it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Joanne,
Thank
for
you.
coming and being
Yes,
a part
thank
of
you
this.
so much.
Sounds great. I didn't have to use the swear button one time.
No, nailed it.
It's too early in the day.
Yeah.
Yes,
Seriously.
if you want people to give you a shout out or anything else you want for people to contact you or anything from this, is there
If
anything
you're
you wanna
selling a house,
if you're selling
really
a house
easy one.
or anything like
That's overrated.
There we go.
I mean, like,
all right.
I definitely will help anyone sell or buy a house, but my Instagram is Joanne Sells Idaho. But I think it's more of like if you're there and you need a little guidance through transitions,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm great at that. I've been
Yeah.
through a few,
Agreed.
Yeah.
and
Agreed.
that's what helps sell my fire and fill my cup.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
like
so I'm gonna just go ahead and say, if you see Joanne out and about, say hi.
Yeah,
She'll say hi
and
back.
if
I
I have
promise.
that RBF,
Yeah.
my daughter says I have. It's because I'm just in thought.
Just thinking.
Like, what's my next adventure and how are we going to get there and what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's nothing personal.
So interrupt it, say hi, and
Yes.
see where the conversation
Yeah.
goes.
Well, thanks
Awesome.
for having me.
Yes,
It's great
thanks,
having you
Joanne.
guys as friends.
And that's
Awesome.
a wrap.
Alrighty. Peace.
Thank you to our sponsor, Radon Professionals. Radon Professionals specializes in radon testing and mitigation. Serving all of Idaho and Wyoming, Radon Professionals can help you breathe the healthiest air on the block. For more info, check out our website at radon-professionals.com.